Testing, clap, clap, testing, 1, 2, 3. All right, change up the ISO configuration. All of a sudden, it's super bright. Okay, today's subject, second take 2. It's about colloidal silver, the secrets of silver, smarter, faster, healthier, and stronger. Okay, in order to understand silver, first, it would help a lot if one were to play around with electrical circuits, playing around with understanding metallic conductivity like gold, copper. And what I mean by that is try to transfer electricity or run electricity from one end of the wire, whether it's silver, copper, or gold, to the other end and determine how fast, how efficient, how less limited they are, how conductive they are. Once you learn the level of conductivity, their properties, and how strong what they're used for electrically, you'll start to understand how a human being, or any systems for that matter, if we were to ingest or utilize those particular metals in any particular system first, having adapted that particular material to make it ingestible or digestible. Once that is incorporated and integrated or embedded into the system, you should be able to increase your level of conductivity, okay? And that's the beauty in understanding metals. That's the beauty in understanding our bodies. Because when you start to understand electrical conductivity, you'll start to truly understand what this world's about, okay? But this world is just greater than electricity, and I'll give you somewhat of a hierarchy for you to understand life on the physical, material plane versus life on the nothingness plane. And the nothingness plane starts here, and the nothingness is considered the vacuum, and the vacuum is centralized in every single atom. That means between every crevice of this universe, in between every single crevice, whether it's between you and another person, that empty space, or between the atoms or the quarks within an atom, there are always empty spaces, what we call the vacuum, right? And within this empty space, you can literally say that the vacuum is in everything. Isn't that strange? The paradox there just flips me out when I first heard of it by the guy of the name Russell Walter. And he said, Walter Russell, I'm sorry. And he said that within nothing is everything, and within everything is nothing. And it makes absolute sense. But we weren't taught these kind of paradoxes, and I believe that it's only because we were meant to discover it eventually. No one's hiding it from us. This world we live in, as much as we believe that people are hiding, withholding things from us, we come into our own God form, that we start to discover knowledge that we were meant to discover. If that is a particular path we are on, and we are on all sorts of different paths depending on who we are, okay? But the cool thing with understanding this paradox, that within nothing is everything, and within everything is nothing, you can see how a lot of people who came from nothing end up making everything. And it's because one is so close to the other. When we're talking about in terms of cyclical form, or in terms of cycle, understanding cycles, their backs are facing towards each other. And that's why a lot of the times we tend to avoid the nothingness. And therefore, we see ourselves just going back and forth to just making barely enough money to survive. But if we just let go and embrace the nothingness, I could guarantee you'll jump from the back end of the nothingness to the back door of the everythingness. And I believe that's how I generated my wealth in particular. And that's why it's hard for me or for many others to gain wealth. It's because they are running from all of that wealth because they do not have access to the back door of it. All right. So going back to how this relates to electrical conductivity. So at the nothingness, you've got let's just say the left end of the polar end, to the other end is the everythingness. Slightly to the right of the nothingness here, or to the side of the nothingness, is what we call the ethereal plane. Okay, the ethereal plane deals with things that are more somewhat measurable, but to the average, to the measuring instruments that we have today, it's I would say the measuring capabilities that we have do not touch on the ether. Our instruments deal with more of the material world, things we can observe, things we can sense. The ether is farther from that. But from the ether comes the electrical plane, the vibratory plane. And within the vibratory plane, we can start to witness and observe electricity in the forms of, or vibrations in the form of electricity. And from that electrical plane, we move on over to the physical plane, okay? And those are more of the things that we can observe, assuming that you are the average human being. But for those that are a lot more meditative, those that have a lot of practices in dealing with emptying their minds, emptying their souls or themselves, and letting go of the physical plane and being in touch more so with the nothingness plane, the ethereal plane, those people can sense the subtleties of life that we can't. And we typically call those people like prophets, sages, or spiritual guidances of those sorts, or gurus of those sorts. But that's why, for me personally, I don't see the world from a material, finite or limited to the material observations. I feel and sense and detect patterns that are more so towards the ethereal plane based on my understanding of what I see and observe on the physical plane, because one follows the other, okay? And I tell you what, both follows the patterns of the yin and yang. And everything I just explained to you basically is a delineation or an interpretation of the yin and yang, how the yin is made of the yang, the nothingness is made of the everythingness, and the everythingness is made of the nothingness. Left is made of right, right is made of left. You cannot run from them. An example would be the visual plane. You can look straight ahead, and no matter how small or how big, you'll always be able to differentiate between the left and the right. Okay, they come together. They easily come together. All right, so for us as human beings, once we understand more of how systems in our body is also a system of how our body is constructed from the foundation. It's constructed from electrical material substances, which is created from the ethereal plane. By increasing things that are more conductive, or with higher conductivity, that are more conducive, our bodies takes that in, charges every part of our being, increases its level of conductivity, which means that our electrical flow becomes improved, which allows our blood, white blood cells and our red blood cells, to do what they've got to do. They're there instantaneously when we need them, or they're there a lot more efficiently than they normally would have, assuming there are blockages in our energy flow, in our circuitry, okay? So for me, that's the importance of what I was explaining back in the days with colloidal silver, and that's also my understanding of how cancers and these illnesses come about because of the dampening of electrical flow within our system. One other thing about silver and metals, for you to be able to digest them, they must be broken down in a form that your body can digest, your body can absorb. And that's the idea behind colloidal silver or silver colloids or colloidal gold or gold colloid. A colloid is just another word for saying something that is incredibly molecular, miniature, so fine, so small, that your body can absorb it. Okay, I wouldn't want to swallow a pill of gold or a block of silver. That's not what I would recommend. Things like using silverware back in the days, being in contact with silver, being in contact with gold, having that around you, but not in great form, but just enough so that it increases your electrical circuitry slowly but surely, is great for you. Okay, so if you haven't had silver colloids, read into it. If you haven't had gold colloid, read into it. I recommend you studying electrical conductivity, understanding what your electrical circuitry is about. Read more into that. Play with electricity if you get a chance. Electrical pressure works just like any type of pressure, whether it's having to meet a deadline, which is work pressure, or meeting a particular social pressure, conforming to society, or the water running through your pipes, that's called the water pressure, or the gases that are running through your gas lines, those are called gas pressure. Electrical pressure works in an identical fashion, but they have their own characteristics and properties that differentiate themselves from other properties, other pressure systems, but the idea is virtually identical. Okay, so I hope that explains more of the nature of silver, metals, and things that are electrical, like the part of the universe you're living in, which is very much an electrical universe. Okay, thank you for listening, and I hope that helps.